Hi YouTube, welcome back. I'm quite excited to make this video. One of the major milestones of this project was to get the engine and gearbox completed and sat on a display frame in the garage while I move on to the engine bay, painting, welding, restoration, basically the next phase of the project. Now, I can already hear people watching this going, a display frame? What? Why would you want? No, that's just weird. And you're right, it is a bit weird, it's a bit different. Most people would maybe restore their engine. It might sit in storage while they do that, but they certainly wouldn't have any inclination to put it on a display frame. There's a couple of reasons why I wanted to do that. I've always been fascinated by how mechanical stuff looks and works. I like to understand it. And this is going to sound a bit weird, but I like how it looks, if it looks nice, if that makes sense. For example, the rear subframe on the Jaguar XJS, it's just a really intricate piece of engineering, and once it's all cleaned up, it just looks nice. It's kind of something I would actually have by choice. You know, like some people put a motorbike in their lounge as a piece of artwork, and it looks really nice. I would have a Jaguar XJS rear subframe. I know that makes me sound nuts. Some people like to arrange vases or ornaments around their house. Given the choice, I would arrange mechanical parts of cars and motorbikes. That's just who I am. Now, that definitely applies to the Jaguar V12. We've all seen the V12 block turned into coffee tables and all sorts because it just looks cool and built up to the aesthetic standard that I've done it. I really want to have a bit of time to enjoy that, because to be honest, once it's put back in the engine bay, about 80% of it you're not going to be able to see. Now, the second reason is actually quite practical. This is sometimes an informational YouTube channel, and having the engine and gearbox completely built up, sat on a frame, out of the way, gives me an opportunity to do a lot of high definition photography and video of every single feature of the engine. Now, I'm sure at some point in the future that's going to come in useful when someone has an issue with, say, their oil cooler pipes, or maybe the oil filter housing and all those kind of things that are hidden away normally from your viewing in the engine bay. I can show those parts in high detail. Sometimes just seeing a part in a nice clear photo can really help you understand what the problem is when you're trying to fix something. So I think that'll be useful for the Jaguar XJS community, if nothing else. But I'll be honest, selfishly, I just want it on a display frame to enjoy. Talking of frame, by the end of the last video, I'd created this top part where the engine and gearbox will sit. One of the main things, though, is I'm not a welder. I've never welded before. This is literally my first ever delve into welding. And I want to make sure that I take as much stress off my welds as possible. So I spent quite a long time towards the end of the last video coming up with ideas of how to spread what will be about half a ton sitting on this stand. It's a bit terrifying, really, for someone who's not done any fabrication to then go into quite such a critical project. What I came up with, though, was an idea to spread the load so that it wasn't on any in particular weld over this area in each corner. And to do that, I had these made. So the idea is, if you imagine this is the underside, I'm going to put one of these on each corner, like so. I found a local kind of smithy forge, and they've cut these out for me, which is great. I mean, in hindsight, I didn't know they existed. They're just down the road from me. I could have got them to just create this frame for me, but I didn't know what I wanted, and I'm making it up as I go along, which is a bit of a problem because they kind of want to know exactly what they're doing for obvious reasons. And also, I really do want to learn how to weld, and there's only one way to learn, which is to just try it. Anyway, my idea is, if I get 3 of these, let me just pop you on my head so I've got both hands. There we go, that's better. So we're going to have 3 legs per corner, which sounds like absolute overkill, but I think it's probably the best way of doing it. Already realised a problem there. I'm going to have to try and flatten that, because otherwise I've got issues. I've got a massive gap there. Yeah, none of this is going to be without its challenges, but the idea is to put, if I just take that off, I want to put a leg there, there, and there on each corner. The reason I'm fumbling about is, as usual, I'm making this up as I go along, and there may be some decision changes. I am concerned now that I'm not going to be able to get that area flat. And I'm just trying to think whether I could sack off having the double plates, and I could always weld those somewhere else. Let me just have a think. The idea, you see, is to kind of actually just build these structures off the frame. So if I just build one up, how it'll look. So I shall make 4 of that, basically, if that makes sense, and then make sure everything's level-ish as much as I can, and then weld those onto the frame. And the idea then is, so this is on the floor, because we're upside down, if you imagine. All that weight is going to be pressing on these 4 plates, and that is spreading the load across these welds instead of it just sitting on that. I think that would probably break, I'll be perfectly honest, if I just had legs without a plate to spread it out. I will then put some bracing to stop any potential movement left or right. Now, like most of this stuff, I'm just going to have to stop thinking and talking and just start doing. So let's stop procrastinating and just get some tools out and get welding. First job though, I've got to pop the engine back off the stand, put it in storage. I'm a bit short on space in here at the moment. So to lift an engine, obviously you're going to need an engine stand. What you want to do is go for the cheapest Chinese off-the-shelf thing you can find. Oh yeah. So previously, when I first lifted the engine with this engine stand, I just did the thing of kind of putting the hook in the middle and connecting it to each lifting eye with chains. The issue is you just can't do that on these engines, not when they're built up anyway. I could just clear the cam housings if I took the cam covers off, but if I was to do that now, I'd just gouge huge holes in my cam housings. Obviously now, whilst everything's on top, I'd probably damage lots of other stuff. So what you need, I think I've figured out, is 4 sets of chains going up vertically, and then you need to find yourself something like this. I did look at bulk bag carriers that would, spread the load on 4 corners. This is actually came from BAE Industries, actually up near Salisbury in Preston. They must have used it for lifting some sort of massive crates. I'll need those over here. So I need to attach that to that, get it up over, then set everything up. We'll lift the engine off and just pop it up on timber for now. That means I can get this base, well, it's not the base frame, is it? It's the top frame out and start welding. What was I doing? Yes, I need to lift that. Of course, this adds more weight to the whole proceedings, which is great. That's it, lay it on. Lay it on there. There we go. Always stresses me out that all the weight is essentially on just one link. I don't know. That's just how engine lifts are, I guess. I've got that high enough so that even while it's swinging about, it's not going to twat the top of the engine. Now, when I come to take this engine out and in the car, I am going to have to take this, this is to stop the weather going up under my garage door because the wind just hammers the front of my garage. Right, but it also causes me quite a lot of problems. Let's just get this wheel over. Fucking hell. Oh, come on, you big lump. Let me just get this in and then I'll come back to you. Oh, there we go, somewhere near. I can now attach my 4 chains. Where's the hole? There we go. Oops. There we go. So it'll sit something like that on each corner. Okay, probably need to be just over that way slightly. It's never perfect, but I think that's near enough. Lower her down a bit and then connect up to each eye. Try that. Oh yeah, some wiring in the way at the minute. Let's just pop that off. Clear all this out of the way. That's that filter thing. That can just dangle. So we don't want to risk trapping anything, obviously. I will check. Once I just take the weight of the engine, I'll just go around and just check that there's nothing trapped or anything. I may need to pull out this extra air valve. I just fitted that last night and it may impede my ability to do this up. It's a shame because I've got a really nice tight seal on it. I'm going to try and do it with it in, or maybe whether I'll be able to get it out or not again afterwards is another question. I need to be careful of those electrical connectors as well. We'll just see what it looks like once I lift it up a bit. Just taking the weight. Oh, that's good. Yeah, we're pulling away from them. That one's just starting to lift. That's all clear. And again, we're clear there. Right, that can sit like that. I've got it blocked up underneath with a blanket for paint protection. Seems to work. So let's just let this down very gently. I have to mess about checking it's sitting correctly, not trapping anything. I'm just waiting to watch it start putting the front end down. There we go. Now we can just go around and check we're clear of the oil cooler pipes. That's sitting on the sump. That's got a gap. That's in the middle of the sump. Okay. It's sat on itself. So let's just go around and have a check before we disconnect everything. Sat on its sump. There's a little hump here
as well in the sump, so I'll just make sure that's blocked up back from that. Oops, we're all good there. Let's just check we're pretty much in the middle. It felt pretty stable there when I rocked it about. That's fine. So before we commit to taking the lift off, just give it a proper rock. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So I can disconnect those chains now, move the stand out of the way. We've got the frame out ready for working on, and the engine can just sit there while I mess about. Well, there's one corner three-legged thing created. I did run into some issues, not being a welder, I'm learning as I go. Warpage is the thing, isn't it? So I welded all of one end on, and then the others weren't kind of square because the plate must have warped slightly with all the heat. I'm going to try and avoid that a bit on the next one by tack welding it all, and then I can manipulate it into shape and try and weld, sort of do one down there, then one up there, then one down there, that kind of thing. Maybe that'll help. So on this side, I've just welded one side of each. I'm now just going to place it on. It doesn't really matter which way up there, this could be the top or the bottom. I'll get this corner one in place, and then because these still have a bit of flexibility now because I've not welded them completely, I should be able to manipulate them to where I want them and just do one weld on this side and keep flipping it over, and I think that'll stop. It was only minor, but they were just kind of tucked in a little bit more than I'd like on that one. It doesn't really matter because what I'll do is just put it upside down so that if anything the legs are further apart at the bottom. You know what I mean. So let's see how that goes. Right, it's all very wonky, but that's mainly because it's on a very wonky drive. This is why I've got this slightly convoluted setup here to try and give me a level workspace, and then I set fire to the bit of wood. So that's why I'm working off a paving slab. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of get a general idea of what I'm doing. Obviously I've got 2 more legs to make, but this is my thinking. So that now spreads all the weight that would be on that weld over that area and down this arm a bit. So the gearbox is going to be sat here, so there's going to be a lot of weight pressing down there in that area, and then the rest is going to be pressing down here. And I think with 4 legs like that, I think we should be good. If I start lowering the engine, I start seeing these flex like mad, then I know I'm not, and we're going to have to put something in the middle. But I think that'll be strong enough. What I wouldn't have wanted is all that weight just on these welds here. So we're kind of halfway there-ish. Oh yeah, it's hard to see because everything's all wonky on the drive, but doing it that way stopped the warping as much. So I just welded one and one, manipulated them, one, and then committed to welding them all up, and that seems to have worked. There's a few creaks and groans from the metal as it flexed, but it's come out much better than the other one. So I guess that's what I'll do with the other 2. I've got to go pick up her ladyship from her workplace, which very fortuitously, is that a word? I don't know, I'm too hot to speak English. I need a beer is what I'm trying to say, and she works at a pub. I'm happy about that. So I'm going to call it for now. I might do a bit more later on. It is now sat on its 4 legs. The bits where the engine mounts, I probably could have got them straighter, but I don't care. You can see my sort of evolution of welding skill coming along very slightly. It's much better than it was at the start, so that's good. Hopefully I'm slowly learning. But yeah, that's a pretty solid table. I think that's going to hold the engine just fine. So when I get back this evening, or maybe tomorrow, I've got to weld that scaffold pole in there. I've measured it, needs to be 20 centimetres tall. And these are welded on from this way, but I shall run weld here, here, here. Oh, I'm going to have issues with warping again on that, aren't I? I'm going to have to do a bit at a time. But yeah, I'm very happy with how that's turning out. And some positive, I can lift it. It's not going to get any heavier. I mean, the scaffold pole's not going to add much. I can just lift it. I look like I'm doing one of those world's strongest men competitions, but it is liftable. Anyway, what time are we on? Yeah, 20 to 4. It's beer time. Nearly done. I'm just having a little break. Poor little welder keeps overheating. I don't think it was really made for quite such a major job. Last thing I'm putting on is just some angular bracing. Just thought it would be a good idea. Should probably have some there as well, but I don't have any more steel, so I'm not going to do that. I might add it later if it looks like it needs it, but to be honest, this is looking pretty solid. There's a lot of metal gone in there, so I think we'll be all right. Yeah, I'll just get these welded up and then can let it all cool down. And I don't know if I can get it in the garage tonight. I might be able to shift the bike out of the way and just get it in there, and then I'm done for tonight. It's the next morning. I've cleared a space. Not entirely sure where I'm going to put it yet, but I'll spend a lot of time thinking about that. Let's just get it in. It's actually drizzling a bit out there at the minute, so the sooner I get it in, the better. I've also removed quite a bit of the old carpet, trying to level out the surface. I don't actually know which is better, lots of soft layers for it to settle down into, or less layers but hopefully a bit flatter. That's where I set fire to the garage once, by the way. Brake cleaner and a heater. The two didn't mix very well. Well, actually they mixed very well. Right, let's just climb in here. And then it's just a case of finding the point of balance. Yeah, and walking it in. Okay, let's just check my rear end. Right, climb back out. I mean, good news is that is sat absolutely solid flat on that floor. So unfortunately, once again, whilst using the engine lift to lift the engine and all that, I didn't get to film the process. It's such a big lump and it's swinging about. I had to enlist the help of my mate Phil. Thank you to Phil for coming round and helping me. And in amongst all the stress of trying to manhandle about half a ton of engine and gearbox onto the stand, I just didn't have time to film anything apart from this little bit that you're seeing now. But I'm pleased to say the engine and transmission lift was a success, and the stand I created, so far anyway, appears to be a resounding success.
inevitably there's been a couple of things I've overlooked. Number one is it's way too tall. I completely overlooked the height of the thing. I looked over at the engine while it was over here on the floor and just sort of went, I don't know, about this high, 60 centimeters. Failed to take into account the extra height because of these sort of bits that go under the engine mounts and the transmission. The whole thing has ended up monumentally high. So this is my eye level. Not particularly ideal. I'd rather it was something like this. I am a short person, to be fair. Any normal person will have this view of the engine. It's not really an issue. It's just if I want to do any work on top of the engine, I mean, everything's done, although, as you saw earlier, I was faffing about with the throttle potentiometer. It did have to stand on a stool. The other cock-up, if you like, is I kind of didn't really know where I was going to put this in the garage. It's obviously taking up quite a lot of room, and I wanted to be able to still work around it, obviously, for the next few months. And I stuck it here, right under my loft hatch. Yeah, there's quite a lot of car parts still up there. Now, again, it's not a major issue. A bit like I can stand on a stool to look over the giant engine thing I've created. I can actually pull down that ladder onto the desk. I've actually screwed a piece of timber here, and that allows me to sort of climb up at a very alarming angle over the engine into the loft to get stuff down. So I shall work around that also for the next few months. Well, that wraps up phase one of this project. It's a big milestone for me. The engine and the gearbox all finished, detailed to a level of obsessiveness that no sane person should undertake. Sat on a ridiculously over-engineered, albeit slightly tall table. But all that aside, I can now move on to phase two. I've already started. I gave the engine bay a complete clean today, just degreased it just so I could remind myself where I got up to. I have accepted that probably the first job I'm going to have to do is remove the dash. I have no idea how to take a Jaguar XJS dash out. I also have a bit of a fancy later spec steering wheel with the wood inlays to fit anyway. So while I'm taking the steering wheel off, it seems prudent to remove the dash. That will take a lot of the stress off when we're welding in this area. So if any of you want to join me along the journey for phase two of this project, I'll see you in the next video. Just putting some odds and ends on the engine. I realised I've made a mistake in one of my previous videos. I messed about with rebuilt the throttle potentiometer. I've put this in an incorrect position, this circular piece here. That little nodule should be pressed up against this side. I noticed because I thought I'd just put my throttle cable on just to check, and I can't get it in, and that's because I've just looked back at some old photos. This is messed up. So I'm just going to take the tab washer off here, take this apart. It's a bit of a pain in the ass because it means I'm going to have to reset those springs and basically rebuild it correctly. So there's the nut and the tab washer. Oh, actually, if I just undo that bit, which is the bit that the spring's held onto, maybe I'll be able to lift that up and manipulate that. Probably not. What are they? They're tiny, whatever they are. This is probably a bad idea. Probably going to happen is everything's just going to twang out and I'm going to lose bits. Okay. What's happening? Can I get that off now? Maybe. You just sit there. So remember now we had a plastic washer and a washer.
that apparently should be like that. See, so that's getting pulled around. That feels horrible though. Did I put those washers the right way up? I'll have to check my own video. That feels a bit crap, but I think that's how it goes. I just had me a little cock up. The little brass bolt that holds in this bit just snapped off, but as I started to drill it out, it actually just caught it and it started to thread out the back, or rather out the front. So I'm hoping I can rectify this now with a pair of vice grips, and then I'll just put a different bolt in. That was a bit of a close call. Yeah, that's fine. Good, disaster averted. Note to self, those little bolts are incredibly weak. Got my spring in place, so that needs to be there when I locate this piece in. Which is easier said than done. Oh no, I can sort of turn that against itself. That's going to go like that. That goes there. Got myself some spare bolts anyway. I ordered these by mistake when I snapped that bolt on the coil. I can see how I snapped that all actually, because this is at a wonky angle as it's going in, so it will have been stressed. I must try and avoid that this time. Maybe if I screw them both in a little bit at a time. Yeah, see, I can feel that's obviously pulling against. Okay. Fair enough, I can see why that snapped. Just make sure I don't put any stress on it as I do them up. No, they're not going in at all. I don't know why, but they're not. What's going on now? Oh. They're too long, are they? Where's the original bolts? Oh, I'm going to have to trim down, yeah, that one's knackered thread anyway. Trim down a couple of these bolts. Just done one and checked it, seems to work. Okay, back in business, I think. So that wants to be that side. That wants to be like that. Did I put my washer on? Yeah, I did. Okay, that wants to sit like that. They obviously don't need very much. I'm asking a lot of that grip washer now, tab washer, whatever it's called. That's been used and abused now. What I have found is a good idea is to just wind the nut on a little bit and then just bend the tabs up in preparation. What's that? And then we can pick whichever one's on a flat, which this time round is that one. Flatten that one down. Okay, that was tight, that's tight. Right, we can try and fit our throttle cable now, which is what I was just doing. So we've got our two adjuster nuts here. I've loosened one off so I can slide the thing through the thing. Just put that there just so it's on its most sloppy sitting. That goes around like that. That gets fed through there. Whoops, on the runner please. And I think we should be let's just nip that up now. Obviously that would need adjusting. So that's me pressing on the accelerator. Not quite sure what that's for. I'm going to have to look into that. I don't know why it has a bit of slack before. Anyway, I think that's correct now. Disaster averted there. Yeah, and when I get a chance, when I'm ordering other stuff from either Jaguar, Land Rover or S&G Barrett, I'll just get a couple of tab washers in.